Hi, my name is Irma Romero, and I'm one of the trainers here with Quick Learning School. And the purpose of our video is to talk about remote testing versus on-site testing. And when I talk about remote testing, I'm talking about taking the test in your own home, a live proctored testing experience with PSI, or should you go into the PSI Center? So let's talk about those two things. You can easily look at the same resources that I'm looking at by visiting our website, clicking on career resources, and then clicking on schedule insurance exam. That will take you directly to the PSI site and the page that is dedicated to the California Department of Insurance for their licensing exams. And if you've watched our previous video on how to schedule an exam, we're going to the same place. You can see and view available tests. We talked about that in the previous video. And you have on-site testing versus online proctored live testing. And on-site testing test center, that's live too. So they're both live and one's in person and one's online. So, let's just have some fun with this video. I might be a little bit messy, but let's be forgiving and let's be human behind all of this. And so let's talk about, again, remote testing versus on-site testing. So under the test instructions, there's a couple of videos so you can take a look at their tutorial videos of like what your exam experience might be. And of course, this is from the PSI perspective, right? You can take a look at the video for the PSI Test Center on-site experience, or you can look at the PSI proctored live experience. However, I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of students feedback, my own experience, and talk about those two, and also the guidelines that PSI has posted here on the facts, the frequently asked questions regarding the exam. If we go all the way to the bottom, towards the bottom, the last two pieces of information that they're talking about include the PSI exam center regulations, if live proctored, and then PSI web delivery remotely proctored. So I know that it's so the other, when you look at the landing page to schedule your test, it's talking about like live proctored, and they're talking about remote testing. So the languaging here is they're overlapping a little bit. And so let's clarify this. If you're going to the testing center, right, that is on site. If you are taking it at home in the convenience of your own home or your office or just someplace remotely outside of a PSI testing center, that is online proctored, and that is a remote test. And so if we go through live proctored, going to testing center, there are plenty of testing centers around the state of California. Our school is in the San Francisco Bay Area. So of course we're most familiar with the locations of Santa Clara, Union City, San Francisco, Santa Rosa, Sacramento, Walnut Creek. Let's see what else is out there. Fresno. And then in SoCal, of course, they have one in San Diego, they have one in LA. And so there's many choices as far as where you can take your exam. And one of the things that I love about the test, going to a testing center, is one of those things where you set it and forget it, but don't really forget it, right? You want to remember the test date and the time and make sure you're taking the right test. Did I say make sure you're taking the right test? I'm going to say that one more time, so a total of 3 times. Make sure you're taking the right test. The reason I want to bring this up is because we've had students, they're coming in, taking their classes for life with accident and health. And you know what happens? They take life only, or they take accident and health only. And then they have to go back and take the other half of the test. And so be very careful and be aware of, did you sign up for the right exam? If your license confirmation, or if your test confirmation says life only, then that's the life only exam. If it says accident and health only, then that's the accident and health only exam. Like I said in a previous video, we recommend our students do both life with accident and health. And so make sure you're taking the right test, because otherwise you're going to pay 2 separate exam fees for when you could have just paid one. So let's talk about this live proctored exam. One of the things I want to remind you, that when you go in, you do not talk to anybody else other than the proctor. They're kind of strict about that. We had a student a few years ago, and again, you're going in and we forget that there's a formality in taking an exam. So when you go in, you're going to, of course, check in with the proctor. You're going to give them valid picture ID. There's a disclosure here. I want to go ahead and read that to you. You are prohibited from reproducing, communicating, or transmitting any test content in any form for any purpose. Copying or communicating content is a violation of PSI security policy. Either one may result in disqualification of exam results or may lead to legal action and will be reported to your licensing authority and sponsor. They don't kid around with that, okay? We go to the curriculum board meetings, and in every meeting they share how many administrative actions or disciplinary actions they've taken against people. So it's not a joke when I say that you want to make sure you do not put yourself in a position where it looks like you might be cheating or copying any of the material. All right. Again, no talking to people. If you take a bathroom break because they let you go to the bathroom if you need to, do not talk to people in the hallway. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you ever meet me or send me a message, I'll tell you why. So electronic devices and recording devices, of course, of any kind, are not permitted in the testing area. You don't want to bring any personal items in the testing center either. One, they're not responsible for them. And two, I mean, you don't need to take anything with you. Like, again, you just show up, you set it and forget it, and you show up on your day of your exam. You must have valid picture ID. They will not accept an expired license. I had a student who, like, their license they just had a birthday like 2 days before their exam, and they came in and they didn't know that their license was expired. And guess what? They weren't able to take their test, and they had to reschedule and pay another exam fee. So don't be that person. Make sure that you have valid picture ID. And if you don't have valid picture ID, I mean, you could have like a passport. Anything that's government issued is typically acceptable, right? All right, PSI requires all employees and test takers to conduct themselves in a professional and courteous manner at all times. Remember your manners. I cannot tell you that enough. I know when emotions are high, intelligence is low. I'm quoting Blair Singer. I love that quote. And you want to keep calm when you're taking the test anyways, because you want to be in a calm state, right? You got to manage your state when you're taking your exam. You don't want to be all stressed out. And don't be rude. Be nice, right? I mean, being nice to the proctor is just going to bring you good vibes. So be nice to the proctor when you get there. Plus, you can get in trouble for it if you're rude. They can report it back to the licensing authority. You must arrive at the testing center at least 30 minutes prior to the scheduled exam time in order to be admitted to take your exam. So remember, be there 30 minutes. Don't stress about being there 30 minutes, but don't be late. Be early or be early. Those are your only options. But again, if you know me, I have a working relationship with time. And so maybe I'll show up 15 or 20 minutes before. Just make it a point that whatever time you schedule your test, you're going to be there 30 minutes beforehand. Because then if anything does happen, you're at least going to be there before your exam is supposed to start. Persons not scheduled to take the exam are not permitted to wait in the testing center or surrounding common areas. You may not exit the building or use your cell phone or any other electronic devices during the examination. Again, you don't want to go in and you don't want to give the appearance that you're taking information from the exam or anything like that. No hoodies, no watches. They're going to have you take all of that stuff off. What else? I can remember top of mind. I have another slide that I do in our cram course where I talk about like what to expect on the exam. And I think there's also a video on our channel with what to expect on the exam that we are going to update shortly. And so again, you got to decide which one's better for you. I like the formality of scheduling my exam, going in person, and and I like the driving and then the driving after, because I'm preparing mentally and then I'm decompressing after and maybe celebrating after passing the exam. Because if you went through us, our goal is to get you to pass the exam the first time. Now let's talk about remote testing. We live in a time where remote testing and testing at home on a computer is becoming more and more of the norm. And, I'm not that person. I'm kind of old school. I like going in person. I like talking to the proctor and seeing other people and knowing that I'm not by myself. And in today's world, it's a little bit different, right? Remote testing is a lot more normal these days. However, you have to be prepared for that. Mentally, you have to have the tools for remote testing. And what that means is that you have to have a computer that works, that has a camera that works, that has that audio part works. See, I'm not a tech person. That also, let's see, audio, camera, and this is the most important part, stable internet connection. If you do not have stable internet connection, forget about it. Just go to the testing center or find a place where you can get stable internet connection. So when you schedule your exam, there is a link for a compatibility check. So make sure you do that compatibility check, not only when you schedule your exam, also in preparation on the day of your exam. It's really important because it may have been compatible one day and for some reason it may not be compatible the next day. I don't know, somebody changed something in the computer or something happened. Again, I have no clue what that would be. However, make sure that you check for compatibility. If you need assistance during your exam. Now, going through each one of these line by lines is not really my gig. I like to talk about these things. However, I want to make it a point because, hearing things more than once is important for you to remember. And two, again, when you're in that heightened state of like, I'm taking a test, you want to be fully resourced and calm your nervous system, which we can have a separate conversation about that. But you want to calm the nervous system because when you're taking the remote testing, I can't tell you how many times I've had students share with us like, oh, the internet was out or they couldn't get a hold of the proctor and they get all stressed out. So you have to be prepared and be aware that, hey, you know what? You might have to troubleshoot. Or you could be the person where everything is smooth sailing. And that's probably what the experience for most people, because, squeaky wheel gets the oil. And people who have like issues with the online testing are obviously going to speak the loudest, right? And maybe oppose a little bit, push up against the remote testing or online testing. So with that being said, if you need assistance during your exam, then you initiate a chat online with the test administrator. There's a chat tool there and you can use that chat tool. And yes, they might not respond right away. However, be patient, and it could be an internet thing. It could be a number of things. The other thing is you cannot converse or have any other form of communication with anybody else once you've started your exam, meaning you have to be alone. You can't have your kids in the room next door unless they know not to bother you, that husband or that wife or that boyfriend or that girlfriend or that person that always wants you that might always want your attention. They've got to give you a break and say, hey, you know what, I'm taking this test, you can't bother me. So again, once you start no chatting, as a matter of fact, when you're taking your test, you cannot cover your mouth, you cannot cover your face, because what it could look like is, and I do this, I'm sure you do this too, if you're like on Zoom and you want to talk to somebody, you mute yourself and you cover your mouth so it doesn't look like you're chatting with them. So you can't do that when you take your test. They're going to give you 3 warnings. At the end of 3 warnings, you have to retest and start all over again. So there's this thing where, again, no covering your mouth or your face, and then you have to stay within the frame of the camera. And if you move around too much, then it's going to give you a warning. Again, you get 3 warnings. So be aware of that. Like, I'm a very auditory learner, as you can tell, and you get to know me as you watch my videos. I chit chat a lot and I process information through talking. And so if I'm taking a test, again, that's another reason why I would go in person, because I probably mouth the words to the question and answer as I'm reading it. So again, these are things to consider when you're choosing remote testing or online testing. I'm sorry, yeah, remote testing, online or in person. Let's see. So no reproducing, that's the same thing I read before. No, again, you can't have your cell phone around. The thing, how they're going to know this, you're going to like, well, how would they know that? Because they're going to ask you to take your camera and move it around and show them, like, go look at the ceiling, because they don't want any information up there in case, they don't want you to cheat. So then they might have you go under the table. They'll have you scan the room. All right. And, I'm trying to make this a little kind of comedic as well. I mean, I'm not that much of a comedian, and I just want to make sure that you're aware these are the things to consider. And they're not a big deal for a lot of people. It would be a big deal for me because, like I said, I'm not a techie person. Let's see. You can connect with the remote proctors for up to 15 minutes prior to your scheduled exams. It's a little bit different than when you go in person. In person, they want us to be there 30 minutes before. When you do remote testing, they're saying 15 minutes before. But you have to be ready to launch, right? So 15 minutes prior to your scheduled start time, provided your exam is ready to launch, your launch button will be enabled when your exam is fully prepared for delivery. So just be aware of that. You cannot exit the camera view or use your cell phone or other electronic devices during the examination. Again, you've got to be within the frame of the camera, right? Your hands must be visible at all times, so they're going to be on top. So I don't want to give you an example, but you know what I mean. Your hands are going to be on the desk, and you're probably going to have the computer further away so they can get a full view of you. Let's see. Individual licensing, okay, may supersede these regulations. I hope you found this helpful. I wanted to use this. I have a separate slide that I go through. And again, we need to update that other what to expect on your state licensing exam. However, this is pretty much a synopsis of remote test. Should you remote test or should you go on site? And internet, things to consider in a really brief synopsis. So, if you want to refer your friends to the video, they can watch the whole thing or they can just cut to the end and I'll tell you my own expression of to remote or to go on site. On-site formality, right? You're scheduling your time, it's on the calendar, you're leaving, you're going somewhere, you're creating this whole process in the testing experience, and you're checking in with the proctor. You get to see everybody else, everybody's sharing the same experience you are because they're there to test. And it puts you in a different mindset, right? I get easily distracted. I can't be at home taking a test because I'll be slouching and moving all around. And so going to the testing center and that formality is what I need. But other people, like, they're really good at managing themselves and they don't get as easily distracted, or they go into like that focus mode when they're taking a test because they know it's time to turn it on, right? So, and they're good with the computer. If there's any tech issues, it's not going to bother them. They're not going to get frazzled by it or try to figure out, oh, troubleshooting is natural for a lot of people who are always on the computer. But if you're not that person and you don't have stable internet and you don't have the space or the room, and it's not just the space in the room, but there was, I can't remember who said it, but there was this woman who gave some financial advice, and she said like clutter is like debt, right? But clutter, I want to take away from that and say like, but clutter is also clutter in the mind. So if you've got a lot of things around you in your space that might distract you, that's not going to be the ideal place for you to take an exam. So even if you decide, well, I'm going to do remote testing, I want the convenience of doing it without having to go sit in traffic or go somewhere, then find a quiet space. Maybe you have a friend or your employer or someplace where you can go into an office and have the space to do the exam there at that location as well. So again, those are some of the things to consider. If you have any feedback for me or anything you think I should talk about in regards to the exam, please post down in the comment section, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be starting this program really soon. My sister and I, because my sister also teaches the life and health, and we're going to split every other week, and we're going to just do like a really quick blip on the insurance pre-licensing, and we're putting the pieces together right now, but just take a look, keep a lookout for that in case you're preparing for your exam or you're thinking about a career in the insurance industry, or of somebody who might be thinking about a career in the insurance industry. We're going to have these live sessions where you can come in, you can ask any questions you want about it, and we have years of experience together, and so we can give you feedback or give you any type of coaching you might like in regards to considering a career in the insurance industry. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed our time together, and best wishes on your exam, and I look forward to seeing you in other videos, or I look forward to you visiting my channel for other videos. Thank you.